Get closer to the action this US election with full reaction and analysis.
Sky News, the full story first.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
The most significant day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
Just want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story. The former Scottish First Minister Alex Salmond collapses and dies after delivering a speech in North Macedonia. The 69-year-old came close to achieving Scottish independence before spectacularly falling out with his successor Nicola Sturgeon, who tonight has paid tribute to the man she called her mentor. Tonight, the King has also paid his respects, as have politicians from across the spectrum, with flags lowered to half-mast at Holyrood. Also ahead, back on, £1 billion investment in Britain will go ahead, despite a row over comments by the Transport Secretary. Israel tells Palestinians to flee parts of northern Gaza again, as it claims to have killed more than 20 terrorists in Jabalia. While in Lebanon, another UN peacekeeper is injured by gunfire as the country's former prime minister delivers this warning.
Do you think these are war crimes?
Very much so. I mean, this is not the only one. There are plenty of war crimes that have been already committed by Israel.
Plus, the Leeds sculpture celebrating hundreds of the city's inspirational women, from boxers to social reformers. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages in our press preview from 10:30. Good evening. He was not without controversy, but there is no dispute that Alex Salmond was a giant of Scottish politics for more than 3 decades. Politicians from throughout the UK and from all parties have tonight expressed their shock at the death of the former First Minister, who collapsed after delivering a speech in North Macedonia. And in the past half hour, the King has said that he and the Queen were greatly saddened to hear the news, adding that Mr. Salmond's devotion to Scotland drove his decades of public service. The 69-year-old twice led the Scottish National Party, coming close to gaining independence in the 2014 referendum. But he later resigned from the SNP to fight sexual offence allegations, of which he was cleared, and went on to form Alba, a new pro-independence party. Our Scotland correspondent, Conor Gillis, reports.
It was the moment he and the SNP had waited on for generations. Scotland on the cusp of becoming an independent country. Many thought it was impossible. The master tactician striking a historic deal with then Prime Minister David Cameron, coming close to redrawing the map of the UK. He was a heavyweight of politics in this country, a Marmite man who left office in the wake of the referendum loss.
He was a brilliant political strategist, a brilliant leader. He led the SNP twice. He led his country to the brink of independence. After we lost the independence referendum, it was Alex Salmond who identified that if the 45% who'd voted yes, voted SNP in the next British general election, the SNP would have a landslide. Nobody, including myself, believed him, but he turned out, as usual, to be right, and he was very much the author of that victory.
Alex Salmond achieved what no SNP leader had before, pulling the party from the fringes to become a dominant, election-winning political force. Fearsome and fearless, this was a politician who was a powerful communicator, a mentor to Nicola Sturgeon, who took over the reins as First Minister.
And now we come to the second of our Brolad submersion.
But the beginnings of a bitter breakup began when Salmond could not resist taking a back seat, signing a deal with the Russian state broadcaster, putting their relationship on what would become an irreparable path. And then came the explosive moment his reputation was diminished as allegations of sexual misconduct emerged. He took Sturgeon's government to court over the handling of the scandal. A judge said the probe was tainted by apparent bias. This was a figure who then faced a criminal trial and was later cleared of criminality. All the while, Salmond had a swirling suspicion dark forces were at play to bring him down. He was exiled from the SNP.
Did Nicola Sturgeon conspire against you?
The tragedy is it damaged Alex Salmond. He was pushed to the margin of Scottish politics at a time when he had so much to offer. And the tragedy is that that was inflicted upon him by those whose careers he had fostered and mentored.
Shut out from the SNP, he split parts of the movement and founded a rival pro-independence party. The optimism for the future obvious in this, his last interview with Sky News just 3 weeks ago.
And I think Scotland will be independent in the next 10 years. Now, how that happens, I think, will be as follows. I think it's possible that we could win a nationalist majority in the 2026 election. If people vote wisely on the list, I think we can build that independence majority. And if we do that with a strategy to force Westminster's hand into accepting the will of the people, then we could get towards independence very quickly.
It makes this image all the more shocking. The last picture of Alex Salmond taken before his death, collapsing after a speech in North Macedonia. Tributes from the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, saying Alex Salmond was a monumental figure of Scottish and UK politics. He leaves behind a lasting legacy. And Nicola Sturgeon saying she's shocked, but stresses she cannot pretend that the events of the past few years which led to the breakdown of our relationship did not happen, she says. And it would not be right for me to try. She concludes it remains the fact that for many years, Alex was an incredibly significant figure in my life.
He took the Scottish National Party from the fringes of Scottish politics to become the government of Scotland, and he took Scotland incredibly close to becoming independent. He has made a huge contribution to the public life of Scotland over his life.
As this reverberates around British politics, the flags at the foot of Scottish democracy in Edinburgh now fly at half-mast. A fitting tribute to a man who was one of the most iconic political figures of his generation.
Well, we'll speak to our political correspondent Liz Bates in just a moment. First, though, let's go to Conor. Conor, what do you think Alex Salmond's lasting legacy in Scotland will be?
Well, love him or loathe him, very few could dispute Alex Salmond's political achievements. He was a character with charisma. He was a big beast of politics across the country, and he was a master of strategy. And throughout all of his trials and tribulations, so many of his closest allies, so many of his friends deserted him at that point. And clearly, when we spoke on the phone just a couple of weeks ago, I got a sense from him at that point that he had unfinished business. He felt that back just a couple of years ago, there was a plot to remove him completely from political life, a plot that ultimately failed. Now, some more details are emerging on what happened earlier on this afternoon. We understand that Alex Salmond collapsed at a lunch following a speech that he was giving 10 years on from the independence referendum, surrounded by dignitaries and officials. A shocking, shocking moment. I think what's also really poignant is in the moments before his collapse and his death, he posted a final message on social media. He said, "Scotland is a country, not a county." And I think that really is a reminder of the dedication that Alex Salmond gave just in his final breath to the country that he loves.
Conor, thank you. Let's go to Liz in Westminster now. Liz, what do you think Alex Salmond's impact on UK politics has been?
Well, huge. And it's interesting that Conor picked up on that final social media message from Alex Salmond, because that's something that I noticed today as well. On the account, used to be called Twitter, it's now called X. He was, it seemed to be on his account anyway, so we assume it was him, writing about Scotland's relationship with the UK government and saying that he felt that no Labour government had ever shown Scotland the respect that it deserved. Absolutely encapsulates him as a politician. Right from that moment back in 1987, when he was first elected as an MP, right through to 2007 when he became First Minister. And then to 2011, when the SNP won an overall majority, and he used that as a platform to persuade, to manoeuvre a Conservative Prime Minister into an independence referendum for Scotland, something that many people in UK politics thought could never be achieved. But that was the power of Alex Salmond, his relentlessness, his personal passion, and his personal talents as a politician. That's why we've seen the full range of people in Westminster paying their respects for him today, from Jeremy Corbyn to Nigel Farage to Boris Johnson. And Boris Johnson actually said something, I think, that really captured his character, that he was a disruptor. He really was. And the legacy that he leaves here is not just that he lit that fire in the belly of many Scottish voters for independence, but he also showed that there was a real pathway here in Westminster towards achieving it. And I think that is what he leaves behind him tonight.
Liz Bates in Westminster, Conor Gillis in Scotland. Thank you both. Now, a £1 billion investment in Britain by the international port operator DP World will now go ahead as originally planned. It follows a frantic effort by ministers and diplomats to try to repair relations after a row, prompted by comments from the Transport Secretary, threatened to overshadow a crucial investment summit. Our business correspondent Paul Kelso, who broke the story, has had exclusive access to DP World's London Gateway facility.
It's the £1 billion investment the government decided it could not afford to lose. DP World's London Gateway poised for a huge expansion, but thrown into doubt by criticism by ministers of the Dubai-based company's subsidiary P&O. After calling the ferry company a rogue operator for its use of fire and rehire, Transport Secretary Louise Haigh was slapped down by the Prime Minister. And a frantic 24 hours of diplomacy persuaded this man, DP World Chairman Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem, to travel to London for a government summit. DP World told Sky News, following constructive and positive discussions with the government, we have been given the clarity we need. We look forward to participating in Monday's International Investment Summit. Earlier this month, Sky News was given exclusive access to London Gateway, which already handles almost 2 million containers a year. The planned investment will see capacity double and 400 jobs added to the 1,200 people already working here.
Every one of these 16 cranes is higher than Big Ben, and up here you really do get a sense of the scale of this operation. They already handle more than 1 million containers a year, and that's only going to grow. 2 new berths are going to extend this dock to almost 2 kilometres long, precisely the sort of grand-scale investment the government needs to overhaul Britain's infrastructure and deliver some growth.
This row has illustrated the tension at the heart of Sir Keir Starmer's government, the need to deliver investment, growth and social justice, and do it all without the chaos and embarrassment of recent days.
You had the Employment Rights Bill published last week. You've got the Investment Summit on Sunday. You've then got the budget coming up. And this new consensus around pro-worker, pro-business, there's bound to be a few bumps along the way because you're moving from one way of doing things to a new way of doing things. And that's something that I hope our Select Committee will be able to scrutinise.
The Prime Minister is expected to personally welcome DP World's chairman to London on Sunday, hoping this storm has blown over. Paul Kelso, Sky News.
And tomorrow morning, Trevor Phillips will have reaction to the row over the DP World investment and to the death of Alex Salmond. He'll be joined by Scottish First Minister John Swinney, as well as the Business and Trade Secretary Jonathan Reynolds. That's here on Sky News from 8:30. Let's go to Lebanon now, where another United Nations peacekeeper has been injured in gunfire, the 5th in just the last 3 days. The country's former prime minister has told Sky News that attacks on UN peacekeeping forces could amount to war crimes. We'll bring you what he said in just a moment. But first, Israel has issued a series of evacuation orders in Lebanon and in Gaza as it continues its military offensive on both fronts. It has ordered the residents of 23 villages in southern Lebanon to evacuate and move north of the Awali River. It's also renewed evacuation orders in Gaza, where Palestinians have been told to leave parts of Gaza City's Sheikh Radwan area, and in the Jabalia refugee camp, where at least 29 people are reported to have been killed. 3 main hospitals in the area have also been ordered to evacuate patients and medical staff. People are being told to head south to Al-Muwazi, an area in southern Gaza, which has been designated a humanitarian zone. Our international affairs editor Dominic Waghorn reports.
Yet again, the people of Jabalia are fleeing, ordered south as Israelis launch a third offensive in this area since the war began.
It was without warning, no warning whatsoever. They dropped barrel bombs on us. My brother's son and daughter both martyred. His grandson now. The daughter flew out the building window. They were all torn apart into pieces. All martyrs, all martyrs.
We just got in the truck and drove off, barely able to carry our belongings and some water. There are no rooms for us to shelter in. We have nowhere to go.
They're fleeing this, one Israeli attack after another. Israel's war in Gaza is on repeat. Unable to destroy Hamas completely, critics fear they're now trying to empty northern Gaza of its residents. Israelis are hunting their enemies in Lebanon too. More airstrikes in Beirut, some of the deadliest since the start of the invasion. Into all this flew the Speaker of the Iranian Parliament, quite literally, apparently landing his own plane, before touring the site of one of Israel's latest attacks and pledging Iran's undying support for Hezbollah. In Tel Aviv, Israel's biggest city, calm and quiet. The country was on hold on Yom Kippur, the Jewish Day of Atonement. A time for reflection for Israelis, but also their government, as it ponders its next move against Iran. In retaliation for this, Iran's second ballistic missile attack over a week ago. Among the options, strikes on Iran's alleged nuclear facilities, but that could be counterproductive, pushing the Iranians to work faster to build the bomb. Or against economic targets like its oil industry. That could push up the price of oil and risk a global recession. Or Israel might attack symbols of the Iranian regime, the hated security forces who've so brutally crushed recent protests. Each plan comes with the risk of escalation, but Israel seems determined to strike back with force, hoping to deter Iran from doing this again. Dominic Waghorn, Sky News, Tel Aviv.
Well, the man who was prime minister during the last war in southern Lebanon between Israel and Hezbollah has accused Israel of war crimes after several recent attacks on UN peacekeepers. He also blames Hezbollah for starting this war and creating a failed state in Lebanon and insists Iran should stay out of Lebanon's affairs. Fuad Signora was speaking to my colleague, Mark Austin.
Good morning, Mark. How are you?
Fuad Signora was the Prime Minister who backed UN peacekeepers in Lebanon after the last war here. His anger that they are now being shot at is palpable.
Well, this is something very bad, what Israel has done. And I hope that it will awaken the attention of the world, what Israel is doing. This is not the first time they target the UN forces.
Do you think these are war crimes?
Very much so. I mean, this is not the only one. There are plenty of war crimes that have been already committed by Israel. In several places, they killed so many civilians. And the last one was just 2 days ago.
That was this bombing in Beirut that the Lebanese claim cost 22 civilian lives. The target, a Hezbollah commander.
Do you think the actions of Hezbollah has pushed Lebanon into another war?
It is, yes, without any doubt, that during the past years, Hezbollah has managed to, what do you call it, hijack the country, hijack the government of Lebanon.
That's a bad thing, you think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you cannot rule a country when you have two states, the state of Hezbollah and the proper state that has been diminishing in authority by all means. And its presence has been really spoiling the country and has really interfered in the little politics in the country through Hezbollah, through others, and led to the situation we are in here. Therefore, Lebanon cannot afford that Iran continues to mess around, not only, directly, but again through its tentacles.
How close is Lebanon to collapse?
If we don't do anything proper to really stop this crisis, then it happens. And we don't know when it really happens, but it will happen then. I mean, to stop it.
What, it becomes a failed state?
Let me put it this way. It is a failed state now.
Looking out over Beirut, he says a ceasefire is what his country desperately needs now. But a ceasefire is nowhere in sight. Mark Austin, Sky News, Beirut.
And you can find out more about the events of the Middle East and beyond as Sky News and NBC News join forces for a new podcast. It's called The World with Richard Engel and Yalda Hakim. Scan the QR code on screen right now to download it. You can listen wherever you get your podcasts. A woman has died after going overboard from a cruise ship off the Channel Islands as it was sailing to Southampton. French authorities say a Navy helicopter winched her from the sea, but she was later pronounced dead. The investigation is being led by French police. British runner Robbie Fitzgibbon has died at the age of 28. The middle-distance runner, described by his club as the epitome of a runner's runner, previously represented Great Britain at the European Championships. He had been preparing to run next year's Brighton Marathon to raise money for the mental health charity Mind. His father will now run in his place. And Kamala Harris says Donald Trump is showing a lack of transparency by not releasing his health records after her doctor confirmed the U.S. presidential candidate is in excellent health with the physical and mental resiliency required to lead the country. Advisors hope it will draw a contrast with her Republican rival, who's only released limited information about his health and raised questions about his fitness to serve. Now, a sculpture celebrating some of Leeds' most inspirational women has been unveiled. The artwork, which came about due to the lack of diversity in public sculptures in the city, features the names of nearly 400 women. Sky's Fraser Maud went to see it.
Rusty ribbons reaching towards the blue skies over Leeds. A piece of public art that many would say is long overdue. For decades, the sculptures and statues in the city were almost exclusively designed by and featured men, until now.
So where are you based, please?
Artist Pippa Hale designed the sculpture, which bears the names of the women, past and present, who've helped make the city.
The idea of ribbons was really inspired by the ribbons and sashes and rosettes that the suffragettes used to wear. I like this idea of tying these women's names from both the past and the present.
Amongst the famous daughters of Leeds, the actors, singers, writers and athletes, dozens of more unsung heroines are also immortalised, like Pat Case, who's given 3 decades of service to her cancer charity.
I'm particularly proud as a BME woman for black communities to be part of this sculpture. I think there needs to be more recognition for the work that the women do, because I think we're the backbone of society.
Shirley's in there, and then where am I? Over there.
Twins Becky and Shelley Joyce founded a homeless charity after the death of their sister. Their names are here too.
I was absolutely amazed. I mean, it's a massive accolade. We've literally devoted the last 8 years to creating this charity. So to be acknowledged like this, it was quite emotional, to be honest.
That's what we always wanted to do with Home Street Angels, leave a legacy behind, and this, to have our names on this, is just amazing.
In total, 383 women are immortalised in the ribbons. And hundreds more are symbolised here. The fact that the ribbon disappears under the ground shows that there are many more women who formed the roots of this city. And one of Pippa's great ideas is that this ribbon may well pop up elsewhere in the centre of Leeds with yet more names marking the great women of this great city. The sculpture will be here for decades to come, a work of art designed to impress and inspire. Fraser Maud, Sky News, Leeds.
Okay, let's get the latest sport now from Sky Sports News and Rahul.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality. Getting more people more active. Live life with Vitality.
When I joined Wigan, I needed time. You know, the first thing they asked me is to change the style of play. But I need time to change the style of play. I need time to recruit players who could play the style of play. I need time to do coaching session to improve the players. People expect you to come and then change everything like that. It doesn't work like that. When you want to play the style of play that everyone wants to play, you know, beautiful football, you need the players who can do that. As coaches or managers, we need to keep pushing. Whenever we have opportunity to do well, we have to do well, of course. But before you do well, you need the opportunity, of course.
Being the first black African to manage a professional English club, how proud are you of that? How do you reflect on that now?
Very proud. Very, very proud. Of course, I knew that it was going to be a huge challenge. But in my life, you know, I had a lot of setbacks, I had a lot of tough moments, tough time. But I think what is very important for me is my resilience. You know, during my career, I had some tough time, you know, but never give up. I kept pushing, you know, and that's what I'm going to do, you know, and thinking that I was the first black African is huge, but I haven't finished the job. And I'm hungrier to go back. There's no many black managers who have the opportunity and had the time to work. You know, we had Patrick Vieira, who done a really good job at Crystal Palace when he joined, and then, you know, get sacked after. We hope that, you know, we can be treated the same. I think it's important to look where you go, but as you know, there's no many opportunities out there.
Do you really want to crack it in England, or would you be happy to manage elsewhere, abroad or internationally?
I would prefer to work in England because that's where I did all my career as a football player. I know the environment, I know the culture, I know the people a little bit more than other countries. If there's an opportunity maybe abroad, I'm thinking more about it, definitely. Being an ex-player doesn't mean that you're going to be a top manager, and you have to prove, and I'm willing to prove. I just need some opportunities.
Who do you take advice from? Who do you ask for help? Who do you still learn from? As you know, when we're talking about coaching at the moment, who are some of your kind of mentors and heroes?
Of course, Arsene Wenger. Still talking to Mr. Wenger. Speak to Brendan Rodgers, of course.
What advice have they given you in the last year or so?
Yeah, just keep try to keep fit. You know, keep your mind busy. Do a lot of gym, sport. Look after your health really first, and then keep applying for jobs. You know, and that's the advice that they give me. You know, looking after yourself, your faith, and then keep applying for jobs. When I have a task to do, or when I work for somebody, I work, you know, all my strength, all my power, I work everything to just make sure that I can please my chairman and the guy who employed me. Because when somebody employ you, that person give you the responsibility to look after his business, you know, and you have to do everything you got to do to make sure that it worked. And I'm like that, you know. When somebody trusts me, I need to back that up. Arsene Wenger have trust me. Came from Africa. No one knew about me. The rest is history, you know. And I can say to them, just, you know, to those guys who make the decision. Sometimes you have to make history. Sometimes you have to try things, different things, and you know, you will feel proud about yourself because you make the step that not everybody want to do.
Mentally, sort of applying for jobs, is it tiring? Is it exciting? Is it a bit of both?
It's exciting, I will say. You know, of course, there is some challenge on it, but it's normal. You know, football is an industry where there's a lot of competition. You know, if there's a League 2, League 1, you know, I'll do it.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality.
Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's papers in the press preview. Tonight, we're joined by the broadcaster and commentator Duncan Barks and broadcaster and psychotherapist Lucy Beresford. Well, among the stories we'll be discussing this on the front of The Observer. The headline, Starmer steps into cabinet row to rescue global summit. We'll be right back.
Weeknights on Sky News.
This is your chance. Tell people. Welcome to the Politics Hub.
Our police force has apologised. If you want to find out about Grimsby, you come to the docks.
I'm live in Jerusalem.
Are you not concerned that that could lead